Well, welcome to today's episode of Knoxville Dirt Digest. I am not Mike Roberts. I'm filling in for Mike Roberts today. My name is Bill Wright, and we're going to talk a little bit about the Knoxville Raceway Hall of Fame today and this year's inductees. And our guest today is Eric Arnold. How you doing, Eric?
I'm good. Hey, Bill.
Talk to us a little bit about the Knoxville Raceway Hall of Fame. How did that come about?
The Hall of Fame started in 1979, so quite a few years here. It's been in existence. We got over 200 inductees into the Hall of Fame now. So for this year, we had a lot of nominees this year. So thank to everyone that emails in their nominations. We had a committee that then sits down and goes over those nominations for a few days, and then we get together to vote. And this year's class will be Billy and Stuart Alley. So father-son going in. Of course, Stuart going in posthumously. He passed away a few months ago. So, but pretty excited to call Billy and give him that news. He was pretty excited the other night when I called him. So
he's excited about a lot of things.
Billy sure is, yes. He even gave me a WFO text back like an hour later, so he's pretty excited. Then let's see who else is going in. Jerry Richard Jr., Johnny Herrera, Mike and Barb OBrien, who's on the safety crew for a long time. So trying to think if I missed anyone or not there. I think that's it. So
we need to tell everybody we record this at the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame Museum, and sometimes people get the two confused.
They do.
They'll come over to the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame Museum and they'll look for their favorite Knoxville people, and then we have to unfortunately tell them that there's more people inducted from California than there's actually from this area. So the difference is the Knoxville Raceway Hall of Fame, they celebrate their inductees on the track side, which is opposite the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame Museum here in Knoxville. Talk about that a little bit and where people can find those names.
You can find the names on KnoxvilleRaceway.com. We have a list there. Then under the grandstands, under the front stretch there is a Hall of Fame section where there's actually right when you walk in through the ticket turnstiles there, if you look to your right past the KRCO booth, there is a Hall of Fame section with a wall of plaques with all the inductees' names. So there's a plaque for each inductee, and you can find it all there. So, yeah. Well,
talk about the process. I'm guessing the year of the pandemic was a little bit of a trial for the committee, I'm guessing.
It was. So we weren't able to get together and meet last year face to face. So when I'm dealing with the committee is made up of 6 people. I chair the committee as track historian and one of the track historians. And so then John McCoy is on it. Rick Rankin, who's on the fair board. Grant Rankin, who longtime fair board member, who's also in the Hall of Fame now. Don Sonner, who's in the Hall of Fame, and Bob Thompson, who's also in the Hall of Fame. So a lot of ex-racers, people that have a wealth of knowledge and understand the history of Knoxville Raceway very well, and the people that have contributed to the racetrack to help make it a better place and knows the accomplishments of everybody pretty well. So then when I get the list of names together to put on a ballot to vote, most of the time they're going to know who all those people are and what their accomplishments are ahead of time, but I try to put together a list for them with a brief description of, especially drivers with stats and things like that, or if we know for sure, like Mike and Barb, Barb had 35 years here and Mike had 33 years here on the safety crew. So just things like that helps them maybe narrow it down if you've got a few people that are close and you don't know for sure if one has more years of service than the other or whatever like that. You've got something to kind of go off of with some to back up why you might want to vote for that person or this person. So,
how many nominations do you typically have in a year? Does it fluctuate, or?
It fluctuates between 30 to 40-ish, I would say. We had 42 this year. So that's by far the highest number I've had in the last 7 or 8 years since I've been doing this. Kind of funny story how I ended up. Not really sure how I ended up in this, but somehow I got the title of track historian a while back from Brian Stickle, and Bob Wilson kind of organized the committee. I think him and Cappy back then, and Bob was removing himself out from the committee, and they asked me to step in. And the first meeting we had, that Grant Rankin and Cappy invited me to, I didn't really know what was going on. Cappy didn't allow me to vote. I was just an observer and learning the process. And I thought, well, this is interesting. They asked me to come here, and I don't get to vote, but okay. And Cappy clearly, he knew who I was. He hadn't really, me and him hadn't really sat down and talked face to face before. And he's like, so you're Eric Arnold. You're that guy that's been a pain in my ass with all these years, sending me all these great ideas. And
You and I had that in common, I guess, when we met him.
yeah. And but then afterwards, he, really thanked me for some things, and he's like, not all of your ideas were bad, Eric. So I took that as a badge of honor. You have to get that with Cappy, I guess, before you then get handed the torch to run the Hall of Fame committee the next year. So really appreciate the opportunities I have to help serve the racetrack,
Yep, absolutely. And how many meetings do you usually just have the one big meeting, or?
We just have the one meeting. It lasts about an hour, tops.
Yeah.
Usually everybody kind of has an idea of who they want to vote for, because I give them the list about a week ahead of time. So they've had time to look through it and sort it out. And
Is there a certain number, or are there certain categories that people fall into?
yeah, I break it down I put drivers in one section, and owners, mechanics in another section, and sponsors, track officials. So there are different categories, but we don't really make sure we put in a certain number of people in each category. You sit down and everybody votes for 4 people, and it can be 4 drivers or 4 track officials, or there's really no rhyme or reason to it. It's pretty simple. Cappy wanted it that way, and that's the way I foresee it staying.
Whoever gets the most votes. So
yeah, so everybody votes for 4 people, and usually there's 1 or 2 slam dunks that the majority of us have voted for. And then if there's ties where there's a bunch of tie, like I think this year we had like a 4-way tie for the next for the next inductees there. So then I write down those people that had the most votes that we had a tie for, because we usually want to put in 4 or 5 people. Sometimes 6, like we are this year with Mike and Barb kind of going in together, and Billy and Stuart going in kind of together as father and son. But that's kind of the goal is 4 to 5 a year, unless there's some circumstances like this. So, but then we pass out a second ballot, and you vote for those people that had the most remaining votes, just to narrow it down to make sure we get to the ones we want.
A true outlaw travels far and wide, kicking up dirt wherever he roams, never backing down from a fight. June 20th to 26th, more than $500,000 will be up for grabs as the Huset's 50 and the Agco Jackson Nationals combine to find out who's got what it takes to become a legend, make history, and win the showdown with one driver able to bring home $180,000. Get your tickets today at HusetsSpeedway.com.
Tired of doing this? Get a can of this and spend more time doing this. Seafoam helps engines start easier, run smoother, and last longer. Seafoam. Seafoam! Help your engine run smoother and last longer with Seafoam motor treatment. Just pour it in. Seafoam works to clean your fuel system, clean your oil system, and stabilizes fuel up to 2 years. Make the proven choice. Seafoam motor treatment. Available everywhere automotive products are sold.
Let's talk about this year's inductees a little bit. Well, I guess we'll go alphabetically, which we'll start with Allie. And like you said, Billy Allie from Lincoln, Nebraska area, and his father going in together, his father Stuart. Talk about Billy Allie a little bit and his career here at Knoxville.
Really, Billy's career was pretty short. You start thinking about it, but what he accomplished in a 15-year span here is pretty remarkable. He showed up here in his rookie season. The first full-time season was 2003. He wins the track championship for the 360s and wins like 5 races.
And Rookie of the Year.
Sweeps Twin Features Night because he's Rookie of the Year as well. And really just takes the world by storm. And then he moves up to the Ford 10 class the following year. And what him and his dad were able to accomplish with their own family-owned team was really special, especially that first season. And then, of course, you step up to the 410s, and the competition's a little tougher. But then when they did come back and run 360 shows, it just made him that much better of a driver, and he turns around and wins the 360 Nationals back to back. And was that 04 and 05? 04 and 05? Or is that 05 and 06? I can't remember.
Somewhere in there.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I don't have my notes in front of me.
Yep. So, and then he was able to go on and win the 410 track championship, driving the 17G for Ed and Teresa Gifford.
2006. Yeah.
2006. So you think about it, 2003, 4, 5, 6. Look at all that Billy was able to accomplish there in just a 4-year span, 4 seasons. To win a 360 track championship, a 410 track championship, 2 360 Nationals, basically in all their own stuff except for 2006. And then, but then they came back and raced their own family car a few years later, and they won. Him and Stuart were able to put the 22 car back together, and they won a couple of 410 races. And I mean, they had a really nice career. He took a couple years off, comes back, qualifies for the Knoxville Nationals.
Just out of the blue.
Through the Friday Hard Knocks program, and and that was kind of the last we saw of Billy after that, And, just a really cool family. Billy's an awesome guy, full of energy, and fans love him. And
I think family is the key, and that's why we haven't seen Billy as,
yes.
He's got his kids and his sons, I don't know, winning state Nebraska wrestling titles now, and Billy was a wrestler when he was a really competitive guy. Another thing about Billy, just knowing him personally, is he was super competitive, and when you come in and you're winning, it's tough to run second or third and let that go, sometimes when you're super competitive. And I think that ate at him a little bit in some of those years after his championship. But I think what a lot of the new fans don't realize is what a rivalry he had with Brian Brown. It was Brown versus Alley. There were even articles in magazines, showing him duking it out. And it was a real rivalry, back then, not only here at Knoxville, but across tracks in Missouri, Nebraska, wherever they would show up in a 360 or a 410. And I think Billy ended up winning that championship by 5 points. And that was a year that the season championship was actually rained out and moved to October. So we had to wait till October to see who was going to win that
right.
championship.
I'd forgotten about the October race.
Yeah. So, that was a really unique year, probably it is the closest championship run we've had.
Yeah. One thing about Billy, when he did come back that year and made the 410 Nationals, I kind of had just a one-on-one private conversation with Billy, and I talked about the Brian Brown rivalry a little bit, and I'm like, you see Brian Brown over there with this nice hauler, and look at the equipment he has, and Casey's an FVP, and I'm like, I mean, does that grate at you a little bit? Like, that could have been you maybe. And he goes, a little bit. He goes, that could have been me, but he goes, is Brian Brown really happy? He goes, I'm married to a great lady. I got 2 great kids. He goes, I'm perfectly content. He goes, is Brian Brown really happy though? And I'm like, sure, if you're a guest, Brian Brown, he probably is. But.
Probably is. He's got Heather and Michaela, and so he's probably okay too.
But I don't. I think Billy is definitely content and happy with the direction of his life is, and I'm excited for him to come over here and honor his dad as well. I think it'll be a good deal for their family for sure.
Yep. How about Johnny Herrera, 2-time track champion as well?
Johnny Herrera, he's known as more of an outlaw, right?
Right.
But he raced here 2 seasons, and he won the track championship both seasons. So he won one with Guy Forbrook, and then he turned around 11 or 12 years later and won another one with the Woodward.
Yeah, Larry Woodward out of Hawaii, yeah.
Yeah.
Troy Renfro, I think, was working with that
Troy
team.
was the wrench on that car, so they had an awesome season that year as well. That was so the years he was here, he won like 5 races both of those seasons in the championships, and so when he was here, he made it count. But I think he won a total of 16 or 17 races here. So I mean, when he was here outside of those years, he was definitely competitive and winning races, and he had some top 5s at the Nationals, and he had a really good career here as well. I mean, it was short-lived, but when he was here, he made it count.
Yeah, Johnny, he struggled a lot of places. I mean, he won the King's Royal with Gil Sonner another Knoxville Raceway Hall of Famer, and Troy Renfro was wrenching on that as well. But when he came to Knoxville, even with his own stuff, his dad Joe, the 45X, when he came to Knoxville, he was competitive. You know, where he might not be as competitive when he was first starting out with the Outlaws, a lot of other places. When he came here in the 45X or the Powell 32U or whatever it was, this was a track that he really took to. So.
Yep. He was always fast here. When I called him, he was hoping maybe he could find a ride for that night. So he's not really retired yet officially. So, but he's back home in New Mexico, and he's helping out some other racers down there right now. And he was pretty excited to come back here on July 3rd for the inductions.
Yep, he had been crew chief for Harley White the last couple of years, and of course she stepped away from her family operation and is running in Ohio, actually running at Attica last night. I was watching that a little bit, and he's helping out a pair of brothers down there in Oklahoma now with their midget. I ran into him at Bubba's in Florida this year. He was helping them out with the midgets down there. So, and their names escaping me right now, but anyway, I'll think of it. But anyway, Johnny Herrera, definitely worthy two-time track champion here. And then talk to me a little bit about Mike and Barb OBrien. They've just been around this race community forever, seems like.
They have. 35 and 33 years for the two of them. And Barb worked at the hospital for a lot of years. And they're both retired now. And I really don't know a ton about them. I'm hoping to, when I sit down and write the bios, I'm going to try to get a hold of them today during the races, before the races, and try to get more of their background story as far as training, EMS training. I know Mike was in turn 4 for a long time, so probably a lot of action there when people are entering the pits and they stop, they see him. If there's a fire, he's able to put him out. He probably had more action there than most people, I would say, are on the other corners, just because of the location there. And so both of them, what they probably accomplished and seen in improvements over the years in safety, just with the facility itself and the cars and the safety equipment the drivers have. I'm sure that what they have learned and what they have seen, good and bad, over the years, is pretty remarkable. You start thinking about it.
Yeah, absolutely. It'll be a good conversation to have with them, and they're really charitable people here in the Knoxville community as well. And then last but not least, of course, Jerry Richard Jr. People who come here to see to the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame Museum to see Jerry Richard will find him here. His dad's a National Sprint Car Hall of Famer, but now Jerry Richard Jr. Being inducted in the Knoxville Raceway Hall of Fame.
Yep, so another father-son Knoxville Raceway Hall of Famers. His dad won the Nationals in '62, and his sister Amy was a Knoxville Nationals queen. And
married to Brooke Tatnall.
Yep. So you've got the Richard Tatnall heritage there for GT. So we'll see what his career does. But Jerry had a pretty good career here. Won a lot of races. I think he's 18th on the 17th or 18th on the all-time list. So he's got 16 wins, 15 wins, something like that. I don't have the stats in front of me. And finished, I think his highest points finish was second. But super competitive for a long time. He raced here for 20-ish years, I want to say. A lot of those years he was here every Saturday night making the drive down from Forest Lake. So, Jerry's a pretty humble guy, I think, for the most part. He was kind of shocked when I called him and he found out, but his sister was not, so she's the one that nominated him, I think. So, but he'd been on the ballot for a few years, and it was a matter of time before he was going to get in, I think. So he's a welcome addition to the Hall of Fame for sure.
And Jerry drove for a number of different car owners over the years.
Yeah, he drove the 81, the Johnson 81. Drove.
And he had a good run with him in the late 80s, I'd say.
Gil Sonner, he drove the 47. There was a couple other cars. I think he drove a little bit for
Larry Ball's 3B, maybe.
He drove Larry Ball's 3B, yeah.
And we can't forget that he went over the turn 4 fence. I mean, people always remember Jerry for doing that as well.
He did. Yep. Had some fiery interviews on TV over the years as well. made the Knoxville Nationals A main, I think 4 or 5 times. So, yeah, he had a really, really solid career here.
But not only him, but his sister also have really done an outstanding job of honoring their father, Jerry Richard. And, of course, they have the Jerry Richard Memorial every September.
Cedar Lake.
Up there at Cedar Lake Speedway, and Knoxville Raceway has always supported that in one way or another, either by with some tow money or they even at one time had NOSA versus IRA versus Knoxville. I don't think it's quite to that level that it used to be, but that's a great event that they raise a lot of bonus money for. And I know Jerry Richard Jr. And his sister Amy and everybody else involved spends a lot of time on that. So our inductees this year, again, one more time.
Billy and Stuart Alley, Johnny Herrera, Mike and Barb OBrien, and Jerry Richard Jr.
And when are we going to celebrate this?
July 3rd. So there'll be an induction banquet in Dyer Hudson here at the racetrack at noon that day. And then we'll have the presentation in Victory Lane during intermission as well after the last 410 heat races, traditionally when we do that. And yeah, it should be a good day.
And everyone's welcome to attend the luncheon at noon?
Yep, it's open to the public. I think it's usually $5 or $6 to get in. There's usually a taco bar or some sort of pretty simple. It's not as elegant as what you guys probably do for the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame, but there's a nice meal there that Checker Flight Concessions will cater, and
you've got an awesome MC lined up. So
I do. You're going to MC.
Oh, I am. Yeah,
Yes,
I always enjoy doing that. Like you said, it's not a big elaborate thing. It's kind of an informal thing. So don't think you're going to be there for 3 hours.
7 years ago, we didn't even have one. So.
Right. That's right. So we go in, we celebrate the folks there. We talk to them a little bit, and you get to eat lunch, cheap lunch, and catered in, and no, it's always a good time. So that's July 3rd at noon is the luncheon, and then the Hall of Fame night. Of course, we'll see him at intermission down in Victory Lane. So thanks, Eric, for joining us this week, and thanks to Mike Roberts for allowing me to host.
A true outlaw travels far and wide, kicking up dirt wherever he roams, never backing down from a fight. June 20th to 26th, more than $500,000 will be up for grabs as the Huset 50 and the Agco Jackson Nationals combine to find out who's got what it takes to become a legend, make history, and win the showdown with one driver able to bring home $180,000. Get your tickets today at HusetSpeedway.com.
Tired of doing this? Get a can of this and spend more time doing this. Seafoam helps engines start easier, run smoother, and last longer. Seafoam. Seafoam! Help your engine run smoother and last longer with Seafoam motor treatment. Just pour it in. Seafoam works to clean your fuel system, clean your oil system, and stabilizes fuel up to 2 years. Make the proven choice. Seafoam motor treatment. Available everywhere automotive products are sold.